everybody. Uh, we are very happy to host you in our webinar today. Uh, our host Yogita could not make it, for this today's webinar, so I am hosting this webinar on her behalf. My name is Albert Anthony. I am founder of Loves Cloud. With me, I have Naveen. Naveen is a senior cloud architect. We know each other for quite some years. In fact, in my last organization, we used to work together. And then I also have Ravish with me. Ravish is our technical architect at Loves Cloud. Now, both these gentlemen, they have been working with AWS and cloud for past few years for enterprises, for startups, and many use cases. And for today's webinar, we are focusing on cost management, cost optimization for cloud. And then, we'll focus on all the cloud platforms, but then most of the time, whatever they talk about on AWS would be applicable for most, cloud platform. Okay. So now before we start, let me ask you, Naveen, what do you think is a challenge when it comes to cost for cloud? Like how is it very challenging?
Oh, so the cloud started with the major USP of that you pay as you go.
Right.
You don't provision the resources. You don't go and buy the hardware because whatever you buy today it can become irrelevant tomorrow for your business. You may need maybe another systems or another servers, and it takes time to provision all these things. So you just build your products, host on cloud, and pay as you go.
Right.
Right, and use the elasticity of cloud. So whenever need, scale up or maybe scale horizontally. And the same elasticity can become very disastrous. You
Yeah.
don't keep an eye on
Yes.
what are the resources
Right.
in the cloud, who has been creating these resources.
Right.
Do you really need those resources? That kind of system.
Yes.
So you really need to be vigilant
Right.
what your guys, your teams are creating in cloud.
Anybody can create, servers or any number of servers, right?
Yeah.
And then it will just end up in the bill.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on like why is cost even a challenge for cloud?
Okay, so to add to what Naveen just said, so I think I read a quote which said like best thing about cloud is it gives you kind of unlimited power.
Yeah.
And then same thing is the worst thing about the cloud.
Right.
Now, say as Naveen mentioned, like you have the elasticity. Now, so say for example, I want to scale.
Right.
To what extent?
Right.
So if you don't keep a tab on like what is the minimum that I need, and there should be a restriction on what is the maximum. Now, what's happening in cloud because say if you are using a local hardware, you have a restriction on the resources that you have.
4 GB
So,
of
yeah.
power and one server.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you try to work under those restrictions.
Mhm.
Now in cloud, you know that I can get like maybe 16 GB of RAM. Do you really need it?
Right.
So if you provision because you have the flexibility, you end up provisioning the resources that you don't need, but you have to pay for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that is like a paradigm shift, like what both of you mentioned. First, I mean, how do you monitor who is provisioning these resources, how many resources, and second, what you just mentioned, kind of right sizing.
Yeah.
Do I even need such a big box to run my small application? Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. So now, just for our viewers, if you have any questions, regarding cost management for Naveen and for Ravish, please shoot it. We have our team standing right, who is looking after all these questions. So we already got some questions. Now, do you think that cost is affecting the way people are consuming their cloud services? So is it like a deterrent or is it a challenge for people?
Yeah.
So
So I think I was having a discussion with one of the enterprise inside sales guy. He mentioned a very kind of intriguing fact. Like he said, like a lot of organization who moved to cloud came back to local
Wow.
and that is true for Western region of
Wow.
India,
Right.
came back. Most of them came back for one reason,
Right.
like it's very costly.
It's very costly. Wow.
So as you mentioned, like because when you had a local restriction, you were working under those restrictions,
Exactly. Yeah.
and people are thinking it is very costly because now you can provision. So we have seen instances where developer is running a POC on a 32 gig machine.
Wow.
So okay, everybody, like I want to have a Hayabusa, right? I want to have a sports car. I want to have a Ferrari.
I know.
But I know on the roads that I drive, it doesn't make sense to have a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Where I'm going to get utilize that kind of speed.
Absolutely.
But I have to pay for Ferrari. If I want to on a Ferrari, I have to pay for Ferrari.
And that's like a CFO would be, putting the bill
Bill.
for that Ferrari where they perhaps need, I don't know, maybe a public transport for that matter. Yeah.
And that is creating a notion that cloud is costly. If you so, I'll give a notion of like Infinity Stone. We
Right.
all have watched movie. Now these Infinity Stones independently they are very powerful
Right.
and they kind of balance the whole system.
Right.
Now if that Infinity, all those Infinity Stones, if they are with Thanos,
Right.
think about what Thanos can do. Like
Can
he
do.
can snap a finger and like things
Yeah.
happen.
Interesting. So all those Avengers fan out there, I think that's
Yeah,
a
I
very
am a
good
big Avenger fan. And
analogy. Now, Naveen, you have been working with a lot of customers and designing solutions for them. Do you think that you have observed that people are kind of or their behavior is changing because of cost on cloud?
Oh, yes, to some extent. But the main problem is we need to understand what is the difference between cost and wastage.
Right. Right.
Right? So if I have my business and I need to keep it up and running in the cloud and I'm paying for this, so this is what I want,
Right. Right.
right? I need to pay for my business, but on the same time, I need to be very much vigilant what is wastage, right? So as per one study, almost 35% of cloud expenses are wastage.
Yeah, I
So
think same with
if
yeah.
you take the example of 2018 and 2019, so on an average for both 2 years, almost $10 billion annually were wastage.
Wow.
yeah, that
Think
is a big
about
number.
That's a huge number. That's
So the main
20% you mentioned.
exactly the main problem is we go to the cloud with the fantasy that we have so many power, we can
Yeah,
do this
right,
and that.
right.
Think about AWS, you have almost 185 EC2 instances to use from.
Right. Yeah.
You have
the
hundreds
choice,
of services,
exactly. Yeah.
right? But when people with less knowledge go into cloud, they can make disaster,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So now you need to decide what is the wastage and how you can minimize that wastage. You cannot zero it down, right? So how you can minimize that wastage? For that, you really need some expert in the team in the organization. So big organizations they have now cloud economy advisors,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they started with a like cloud COE, Cloud Center of Excellence,
Excellence.
but now there were sub parts to that. That is
Yeah.
interesting. I did not
Yeah.
know about this cloud economy advisor.
Advisors,
That is interesting. But yeah, I think enterprises would
Yeah,
definitely be
definitely.
benefiting
Yeah.
from a position like this. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that is interesting. So that brings me to my next question. Now, before I jump to that, that is very interesting because there are organizations who are spending millions of dollars on cloud, and if you go with this statistic, 20% of their cloud is kind of wasted.
35%.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that is huge,
Huge.
and if they can kind of benefit from this position whose sole purpose is to ensure that we are not wasting resources on cloud. I think that would be
Almost every third dollar is a wastage.
yeah, which
so,
is
so to add to so I won't take where we saw this wastage,
right.
but from some of this early assessments that we did for a lot of organizations that were using cloud, AWS in particular,
Right.
this number was even higher.
Wow.
We know that like almost 70% of the instances that were running were actually so underutilized. Like you could run everything in one region, in one machine, and you could shut down like a 10 machine out of total 12.
Right, right.
So I think yeah, the fantasy is like yeah, I want to have same
Yeah, and
Ferrari.
I think now that brings to my next question. Like, what are some of the checkpoints, and I assume that what you just spoke is common to all the cloud platform like AWS or Microsoft
Same.
Azure, right, or Google Cloud
True,
platform.
true.
So like what are some of the checkpoints or sort of guardrails that you would recommend, let's just start with you, Naveen, to begin with, that hey, do this, don't do this, so what would you recommend to begin with?
If I talk specifically about AWS things that they offer, so first of all, I'll say that right sizing of the
Yeah,
instances,
yeah.
uh, what kind of CPU or memory you need for the compute type, and then well architect,
Right,
right?
right. The well architected framework. Yeah.
I have seen many applications that they have one EC2 instance running, waiting for one job in a month at month end
Wow.
to doing some processing. So
Wow.
why you don't do Lambda way,
Right, right,
serverless? Whenever
right.
you just need it, use that. And after that, there are a couple of things in AWS billing. So you can explore the bills like different organization, different accounts. So if you have enabled organization, so you have consolidated billing.
Right,
You have
right,
much control.
right.
You can implement some SCPs like
Right.
service control policies.
Yes, yes.
And what you can do there, you can limit the services that one person in that account can have.
Mm.
So suppose if I'm a developer, I don't need to have access to, for example, Lambda because I don't use any serverless application.
Right,
And don't
right.
give me access,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So start with limited or very less privilege.
Very good. Very good.
And after that, like Ravish mentioned about optimization of
Mhm.
the resources underutilized.
Mhm.
So they have instance optimizer.
Right,
So you
right.
put all the things under instance optimizer. It will give you over and underutilized all these things.
Okay.
Then you have spot instances to
Right,
use.
right.
You have reserved instances.
So very interesting. So this essentially shows that cloud provider would give you a lot of tools and services natively,
Yeah.
right? And it is just a matter of knowing that hey, these
Yeah.
things are available, to consume and to reduce the wastage. So or reduce the bill. Now, what is your opinion, Ravish? That what should be the first steps for an organization or even an individual to kind of stop this wastage on cloud.
Okay, so I think so. First, that organization need to classify uses versus wastage, as your
Yes, yes.
Naveen mentioned. So I'll give you one example. Like, say you want to run a Kubernetes master.
Right.
Now it needs certain cores.
Yes.
Even if you see that it's like utilization is 20%, 10%, but it needs certain number of cores so that you can run master. Now this is a utilization, not a wastage.
Right.
Second thing. Organization you should, if you have organization, you should implement these control policies at the org level, like, so this is developer account,
Right.
all the developers will be doing development over here.
Yeah.
And this is production account where we need high availability, maybe
Very
scalability, disaster
Yeah.
recovery and those things. On a developer account you cannot launch, say for example you want RDS.
Right.
On a developer account you cannot launch a multi-AZ RDS. Why you need
Why
multi-AZ
you
RDS in
already
development
have
environment?
Very good.
Versus you, and the wastage that you save here you can utilize in production because you want your application to be available, highly available.
Absolutely.
So you can restrict. Look, so I'll give you one example. We do a lot of trainings,
Right,
right?
right.
And we give students workstation that they can
Right,
use.
right.
So we have implemented a policy that even if you log in with external authenticator, you will be only able to launch this type of instance in this region, and you can only actually add these kind of policies.
Very good.
That kind of restriction we have.
Yes.
Even if you want to, you cannot launch anything else.
Right,
So
right.
based on what Naveen mentioned, like economic advisors, so they
Yes.
can see, and then the experts, like, okay, what kind of application I have. So they will tell, okay, I have something which is doing ML processing, for
Right,
example.
right.
Okay, these guys need like P3 type instances or ML optimized instances. So that kind of policies we should implement,
Very nice.
and that goes across cloud. Say for example, or if you go to Google,
Right.
we have pre-embeddable instances.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that is 1/10 of on-demand
Yeah.
instance.
Yeah.
And they have like generations.
Right.
So different generation
Same.
cost different.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. In fact, one of our team member, he told me that T2 micro, like everybody used
Yeah,
T2,
T2.
right?
Yeah.
And then he told me that AWS has come up with like a T3, which is like,
And T3A.
T3A.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have stopped, it seems, keeping up with AWS. So he mentioned that they are like some 20-30% cheaper
Yeah.
than T2, and they are faster as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, see, this is really really, I would say, interesting, that we need to keep ourselves updated, obviously,
Yeah.
and that is where we have technical architects like you. But then an organization can pretty much rely on cloud platform,
Yeah.
to give them all the ammunitions,
Yeah.
right? And
So,
yeah.
so sorry to interrupt. So AWS has come up with something called saving plans.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah, that I know.
So you can commit.
Right, you can commit.
You know
Yeah.
that okay, this is the usage that I will live, and you can save on your billing. So there are measures, but none of the cloud providers actually want to will come to you and shout at your front like
Right.
okay, do this to
I
save the
know,
cost.
I know.
Obviously, they want.
And I think that goes back to the same code that you mentioned. That cloud is the best thing, and then cloud could also be the
The
bad
worst.
thing, right?
Yeah.
The worst thing. And I think that brings us to this important topic of cloud management per se, right? The other day we were talking about that cloud management platform, and I mentioned that Gartner has come up with a cloud management platform quadrant since last year. So it's been only 2 years, 2019 and 2020. And they mentioned that this category is going to explode into a $300 million business in next couple of years, and I can see why.
Why?
Because like cloud is exploding, the usage is exploding, and obviously, like you said, that the wastage is exploding as well.
As well.
Yeah.
So there could be handful of people like you, who would know that, hey, use this thing, use this guideline, use this guardrail, to reduce the wastage, or they can say that, hey, let's have a tool so that everybody would be knowing that what to do that. And I think that is where the CMP, or the cloud management platform,
Yep.
will come into picture. Interesting, very interesting. So another question that I got from one of our user. Now there is something called predicted bill feature, right? Most cloud providers would actually tell you that, hey, this is what you are going to spend in this month. How useful is that?
Forecast.
Yeah.
Okay. So it is quite useful because it takes your data from the past months,
Mhm.
and then it predicts something based on the uses, right? So with these predictions, you can also put some budgets,
Right.
like what are the predictions
Right.
in the actual uses,
Right.
and then you should also use recommendations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because recommendations are both for saving plans, as you
Yeah,
mentioned,
yeah.
and for reserve instances.
Right.
So saving plans, like going with the recommendation of saving plans, is really really good,
Mhm.
because suppose you have really big organizations, thousands of people, thousands of developers, they are doing different kind of things,
Mhm.
hundreds of accounts.
Right.
Think about hundreds of accounts, right? And many products. So you're using different services, different kind of EC2 instances, Lambda function, RDS, everything that is possible,
Right.
right? And then you need to limit your bills if in compute or EC2. So rather than having scanned all the 100 kind of instances that you're using, you just get the recommendation from AWS based on your past usage of 7 days, 30 days, or 60 days, that this is the minimum level you are touching,
Right.
in terms of dollars,
Right.
like $10 or $15 hourly. So
Right.
suppose you are spending $10,000 on EC2 per month, it comes out to be somewhere around $14 per hour. So you can commit, okay, I'll spend $6 per hour.
Which is fascinating.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah,
the impact it would make,
and then
your cloud spend.
and then you will get around 70% of the discount
Right.
on that usage,
Right.
right? And then it covers EC2 instances and Fargate in ECS, and very soon they're going to add Lambda also in this compute.
They have
Right.
in certain regions they have rolled out that feature.
Yeah.
So that is very good.
It is very good.
Very good. So now, one thing that I've noticed, like both of you are talking mostly about compute and then about storage. So does that mean, or can I make an assumption that most of the cost, incurred on cloud, is on compute and on storage, like servers and the data that you are storing?
Yes.
Is that right?
I think most. so far, based on the experience that we have seen, some sort of compute. It's not just the EC2
Exactly.
instance. It's
Yeah.
just not
Yeah.
the EC2 instance. Maybe you're using, say, for example, SageMaker.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Some sort of compute is responsible for your maximum bills.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so that is where most of the wastage also occurs.
Mhm.
Say for example, if you are putting some data in S3,
Mhm.
the S3 per GB charge is very low.
Right.
So chances, and if you have utilized intelligent tiering, or maybe
Right.
you know that this is 1 TB of data that I need just for keep for legal compliance.
Compliance.
You would
Yeah.
put it in archival storage.
Archival. Yeah. And I
So
think it's
it's
very
very
$4, $5 a terabyte.
terabyte,
Which
yeah.
is pretty good.
But
Yeah.
if you are using disk,
Right.
so we have
Right.
seen instances where people ask for like I want like one instance with 4 core and 16 GB and 2 TB of disk. Like, and we go and ask, okay, why you want 2 TB of disk? Because I will be storing uploaded files. Okay, why don't you try S3?
Right.
So per TB of this disk storage versus per TB of this S3 storage, the difference is huge, pretty huge. But
Exactly.
if you're using, if you attach disk, that is the charge you
Right.
have to incur.
Right. And I think that is the same thing that Naveen earlier mentioned about the wastage.
Yeah.
Like, and you said that, hey, do you need like a Ferrari versus when you can use like a shared transport. So if they don't need a disk, then what's the use in spending $100 a terabyte if they can get the same thing for $20 or $25 a terabyte? Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Now, uh, let me ask you this. Are you aware of your customers using any application for managing cloud costs on cloud, or is it only like technical folks who are managing the cost for them?
Mostly technical folks they manage themselves
Okay.
because if I talk about AWS, they give you plenty of reports, plenty of parameters that you
Right.
can use,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's up to you if you really
Yes.
have that much of expertise.
Exactly. Yeah.
Moreover, if you want to extend that, and maybe if your management needs something else that is beyond what AWS is providing, you can build your own small application
Exactly.
and leverage their billing API.
Yes.
And it costs around 1 cent per hit
Per
in
hit.
the
Yeah.
billing API.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
quite nominal.
Yes. Yes. As long as you're not hitting it very frequently.
Yeah. Then you
That's
can.
why- so
That's
why I
then you incur
you want
cost.
to say something?
Yeah. Then you incur cost. Like, okay, you wanted to keep a tab on cost, for which you use the cost
Cost
API,
API.
which has a cost associated, and you end up with
So in
spending
order,
some.
yeah. So I think we know of cases where that cost API went to some $70 also per month. So that is how yeah.
It is again like to whom you're giving access.
I know.
Same
Yes,
thing.
yes.
If you open this application to developers, right?
Yeah, I know, and they will keep hitting. So I remember, in my last organization, one of our team member, by the way, she had a use case where they put some sort of infinite loop in AWS, and they had like and hold your breath. They got a bill of $10,000 just by hitting that API.
Oh,
$10,000
okay.
because there was a loop and I think it hit like some millions of times.
Mhm.
Okay, in 24 hours, by the way,
Okay.
or maybe on a weekend, and they got a bill of $10,000.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it can happen even though if it is only 1 cent per hit. If you have what you mentioned, if you can put it to developers, no offense against developers. So again, I want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, please
So-
let us know.
So
Yeah.
developers, so they need to do trial and error. So it is it is quite likely that this can happen, but this would not happen. This would not have happened if like as Naveen mentioned, like to whom you are giving access to.
Yeah.
So you know that, okay, and if, and same thing like there was a mention of budget allowance and everything.
Right.
So there is a feature of predicted bill.
Right.
Now
Right.
you got your predicted bill, and like say you check your predicted bill on 7th. Okay, this is the predicted cost that I am going to put. You put some alarm or something that, okay, this is my predicted bill. That means if I divide by a week, so first week I should have this much of spend.
Yes.
And if that's that alarm is broken like in a day, like I was supposed to break that alarm on 15th day, why it is broken on a
On
day,
a 7 day. Yeah.
7 day. So if someone
Yes, I
would
think
have,
it. Yeah, it always helps if you put, and again, like what you mentioned, that there are enough tools and services in place. It's just a matter of knowing them, A, and B, utilizing them.
utilizing them.
Yeah.
If you don't utilize them, obviously, they are.
Because AWS gives you the facility that you can see the bill of up till 1 hour,
Right.
hourly basis,
Right,
for
right.
every services,
Yes,
every account,
yes.
every availability zone.
Right, and you can put
Reasons.
alerts
Yeah.
also, right? And you can then, put it in your Slack or
You,
Microsoft Teams.
you can put up to 20,000 budgets
Yes.
and 5 alerts per budget. So
Yes.
100,000 alerts. What
I
else you
know.
want?
What else you
What else you
want? All right. So we have another question from Himang, and he asks, and this would be for both of you. What kind of solution you recommend for job-oriented application which run only a few days in a month?
Mhm.
So let me ask with you.
Yeah, there could be different things. If you can go serverless,
Serverless, yeah,
go
yeah,
serverless.
yeah.
If you don't want to go serverless, then use spot instances.
You can use a spot,
Because
yes.
you can get spot instances up till 6 hours.
Right, right,
So you
right.
can provision your things like that.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
at whatever time you get your spot instance for 1 hour, 2 hours,
right.
then you can get the things done.
Very good.
Moreover, you have if you know that what are your schedules,
Yes.
if you can predict your schedules, then you can have scheduled reserved instances also.
Yes, yes, you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you can save some cost on that also.
right, right.
Not up to the all normal reserved instances around 70%, but somewhere around 15 to 20%.
Which is still
Reserved
good. I mean,
instances.
if you multiply that into 12 for a month, I think you get very, very good results.
You,
Yeah,
you have many things.
exactly.
Again, you need to see like how much time your application will need and what is the frequency.
Right.
Then you can decide if you need to go serverless or it is just a batch processing.
Yeah,
You need to do some background processing.
right, right. How about you? You have some.
Yeah, I think based on which kind of usage
Use
it is,
case
like
you have, yeah.
maybe so you can use CloudWatch crons. Like I
Right.
want to launch
Yeah,
a machine,
that also,
this
yes.
machine, these machines on these schedules.
Right.
As if you can predict your schedules,
Right, right.
and then based on that you can use, and you can go spot way.
Right.
So we have been using. There are applications that we are running in production for past years in using spot instances in production without any interruptions or without anyone noticing that like 70% of our total capacity is spot.
Fair
Part
enough.
of it is
Yeah,
reserved.
yeah. I think that. So Himang, I believe that we answered your question. There are multiple options available. First, if you want to deploy it on a server, then obviously there are multiple options available. You can use a spot. You can use reserved scheduled instances. You could also use batch jobs, or you could have like a CloudWatch, and then it would trigger certain things like a cron job, or what Naveen mentioned. I personally think that's the best thing. You put that in a serverless. So you put your code in Lambda, and then use a trigger from wherever you want.
Same CloudWatch trigger can be used for
CloudWatch can
serverless
be
as well.
yeah. So I mean, I think if cost is what you are looking for, I think serverless obviously is the best solution. Okay, very good. Now, uh, kind of anti-pattern question, right? So, what are the limitations of cloud provider cost mechanism? So, AWS gives you a lot of options for saving cost. We spoke about all these things. Do you think are there any limitations? Like why still people are getting into a third party applications? Why there is still a wastage? When cloud provider is giving you so many services and tutorials. What are the limitations of those? So let me start with you.
Okay, so there are certain limitations. That is why this quadrant exists.
Exactly.
If
Exactly.
if
Yeah.
so I won't take the handle name. So I saw this on Twitter. It says like cloud billing is broken.
Yeah.
Okay, and he deciphered it like how it is
Yeah.
broken. So I'll give you one example. You can see the cost of EC2 instance when you go and use the calculator.
Right.
What happens, like if you're using that calculator, most people leave that data transfer
Yeah.
part blank. Okay, we have seen instances where there was a IoT
Yes.
application running, and it was sending data from like tens of thousands of sensors. The data incoming and outgoing that was happening, instance utilization was not very much, but the data transfer was actually significant in the billing part.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that is broken.
Right.
Now, different cloud providers, they have different kind of recommendation that they provide.
Yes.
Because AWS usage is very high, they have very efficient, elegant
Right.
way. But different how different cloud providers provide you billing information is different. So, for
Mhm.
example, if you go on GCP, you can control at the project level.
Right.
If you
Right.
go on Azure, you can control at the subscription level,
Right.
and then you can restrict at the resource booking level.
Which
That is
in itself is quite confusing, right?
quite
So
confusing. Now, if so, there are chances, and this happens, that people are using multiple clouds for different, like say for example,
yes.
you are managing application or development for different customers. You are using different cloud because they have a need, like all the traditional all the companies who are using Microsoft technology, they would prefer to go on Azure. Why would
Right.
they want to go on AWS? Because they are, everybody is very comfortable working with Azure. Now, the billing information and recommendation that you would get for Azure is going to be very different from
Very
what you
different.
get from.
Yeah.
Now, if you have that kind of structure, you would need something unified, where you can see at one place, okay, these many accounts I have. So I have personally seen like tens of subscription in a Microsoft Azure
Right.
account,
Right.
and in a org level, like hundreds or tens plus
Projects. Yeah.
childs in
Childs,
AWS.
yeah.
AWS.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you would want to view them, like say for example, Naveen is responsible for giving advice on cloud spends. Like
Right.
okay, this is
Right.
where he would he want to go and log into 15, 20 different
Yeah.
Azure accounts and GCP accounts and see, because what happens with, so I'll give you, like I'll go cloud agnostic with this. I'll try to decipher for different cloud providers. So GCP, you can have multiple same billing accounts, and you can get bills for, like this is the account and this is the billing account, this is the bill for that billing
Right.
account, and this much of spend is happening because of these projects. Now on AWS you can have consolidated billing, and
Right.
it would say, okay, this is the console, like AU, and this is the spend that is happening on
Right.
at the account level. On Azure, it would say like this is the account ID,
Subscription.
and these are the subscriptions.
Subscriptions. Yes.
These are different
Yeah.
ways. Now you would want something unified. That is why this quadrant exists,
Right.
and something like that would actually help people like economic advisors. Say
Right.
Naveen is
Right.
economic advisor. He can say
Right.
like, why we are spending this much of money?
Yes.
This service is cheaper in AWS. If we are using GCP and AWS
Very nice.
both,
Yeah.
why? So I think MIT ran some calculations that utilized 20,000 preemptible instances on GCP. Be- they must have predicted, okay, we need this much of capacity,
Right.
where we are going to spend less.
Less. Exactly. I mean, 20,000 servers are a pretty big number. So they
So
must have done
that
that.
these kind of tools, and
Yeah.
they are only going to evolve.
Yes.
from-
Oh, yes. Yes. For sure. For sure.
For that is the one reason that these tools exist, and they will continue to evolve and cope up and utilize the feature. So this is one part. Second part is, you would want recommendations and tailored made recommendations.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Right.
Cloud provider would give you a generic sort of
Yes.
recommendations, and
Yes.
you would want, okay, I want like apart from this, these are the other spends that I'm having. Can your tool provide me recommendation on that across cloud, not just on AWS? I use all three clouds, and I would want recommendation that I can utilize irrespective of the cloud.
Right. Very interesting. So now, Naveen, what is your take? Like, what are the limitations of cost management tools or cost management on cloud, as per you? What are the limitations?
Limitation, like as Ravi said, because for startups or mid-sized companies, I don't see there is any limitation because they provide that kind of tools.
Right.
But if you talk about like big enterprise,
Yes.
really big established companies, then they may have hybrid ecosystem in the cloud, as you
Yes.
mentioned,
Yes.
right? For that kind of stuff, you need some dashboard that you can see. Okay, in GCP, this is
Right.
the expense in Azure, this is the one, and
Mm.
so in the AWS. Then on the one dashboard, you can have all these things.
Yes.
So either you can build your own application
Mhm.
connecting all the three or four clouds, whatever you want,
Mm.
or you have some applications, third-party applications. So this is really big market also.
Right.
And I was in the AWS reevent in this December.
Right.
So for my surprise, there were two big segment of vendors. First was for security, of course, and another was for billing management.
Yeah.
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 Because companies have people, but I don't know why they don't want to spend time on billing, and they prefer going third party.
Yes. Yes.
And that's why this, like, the CFO kind of people, they involve
Exactly.
some
I was that was actually my next
audit
question. Yes. Exactly.
and the
Yeah.
recommendations,
Right.
these things.
Right.
So this is for really big companies.
Right.
So in Expedia was, I think in Expedia only, they shut down some instances that they were lying down, or they made some scheduled instances rather than on demand, and they saved 10,000 monthly.
10,000. Just like that.
Just like that,
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There are EBS instances, EBS volumes lying,
Yes.
snapshots,
Yes.
backup. Nobody looks
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah. And that's like $100, $200 a terabyte, right?
Yeah,
Per month,
yeah,
just
per
like
month,
that.
per month.
Yeah. So
And think of a scenario like
crazy.
I'll give you an example. So we built one POC for one of our clients,
Mhm.
and a developer, like, he took some cloud formation from somewhere.
Hmm.
So he did not look into the cloud formation, that what kind of instances they were using.
Right.
So they
Right.
were using really large instances.
Yeah. Like what you mentioned,
Yes.
32 GB for running a POC.
Ferrari. I
Yeah.
love Ferrari.
And he just ran the cloud formation script, created the cluster with four very large instances,
Right.
and kept the cluster running for 15 days.
Oh my
Because he was
gosh.
waiting that when we'll give the demo to the client,
Mhm.
then it should be up and running.
So we kept it running 24 by 7
For
for
15.
15 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, right. So, like, what kind of resources you need when you can shut it down? So you need automation for all
Yes.
these
Yes.
things.
And I think it goes back to the same thing that how many places you can monitor.
Yeah.
I mean, so one person might be knowing it, but then if you are giving access to everybody, there could be one person who could, spin up a lot of things and it is going under the radar
Hmm.
and CFO would get a bill.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
CFO obviously doesn't come to AWS
AWS,
site and
definitely not.
check, hey, what is my predicted bill?
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah, you have hundreds of instances.
exactly, yes.
You
So
cannot go and ask
you cannot
everybody
go,
that
yeah.
who has created
Who
this.
has created
People
it?
don't use tags.
Yes,
right?
they will not use
What are
tag.
you going
Yeah,
to do?
yeah, I know.
If this instance is in use, if I should kill,
Yes,
if you kill the
exactly.
instance, somebody will come here.
Production is down.
Production is down.
I know.
Yeah, it's
All right. So
I
yeah,
think
I completely,
that-
we relate. We all
Yeah,
relate
yeah.
to that.
we all have been there, seen that, done that.
So I'm sure that you are enjoying this conversation, because these are the instances that we all face. If you are working with cloud and if you are responsible for cost, if you are a project manager or a product manager, or if you are a DevOps folks or a system administrator, or if you are an executive, you know that these are all the generic issues, related to cost, right? People firing up few things, and then there is a bill, at the end of the month, and then we don't know that, hey, why this bill came, right? So now we have another question from user Tarun Sharma. He says that I created EC2 instance and installed CentOS with WHM panel for multiple website. So which configuration is best for multiple website, which is also cost effective? So little bit technical question. You want to answer that?
So it would still
Depends.
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 For these kind of questions, I would say depend. Like say, for example, I want to run PHP application.
Right.
Okay, and I want to install Apache on that. Okay, and these are the static CMS like WordPress kind of this. So you can use any generic instance.
Right.
But if these websites under the hood they are doing some processing, say for
Yes.
example, they are running some data models.
Right.
Okay,
And that needs to be in server.
Yeah, that needs to be based
Right.
on what is your usage. You may
Yes.
want to use a memory optimizer or compute optimizer.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, do you have any thoughts on this thing?
Yeah,
Or
similar
the same?
kind of.
Same. Yeah. I could suggest, or I could kind of give my 2 cents. if you want to run multiple website and those websites are not dynamic, then you put all your content on S3.
Yep, yep,
Right?
yep.
That is the most cost effective solution for the same reason that these two gentlemen mentioned. Imagine if you are getting a lot of data, right? So if you keep everything on a server, then you will need a disk,
Yes.
right? And then the cost of disk is obviously 5 times more than
Cost of
your
S3.
object storage,
Right.
your S3. So if you can keep your object storage on S3 for that matter on AWS, then I think this will be a cost effective
Yeah, and
solution.
again, if this application is making contact with other applications, so
Yes, yes, you can do
go
all of that as well.
ECS,
Yes,
ECS way.
yes. So, all right. Now, let's see. Let me ask you another interesting question. So, in coming times, do you think cloud cost management is it going to be an easier thing or it is going to be a more difficult thing? And this again, I'm playing devil's advocate because I also have views of my own.
It is certainly not going to be easier.
Very good. I agree with you.
Because cloud vendors are adding more options,
Yes.
more capabilities,
Yes.
more flexibilities.
Right.
All these things comes with complexity in the management and governance, right? So on the one side, you want to have multiple options.
Right.
So it is not going to be easier. You need to put more time.
Yeah.
You need to be more vigilant,
Right.
right? So you need to put more time.
Very good. So it is not going to be easier. All
But
right.
it-
He has my vote. Yeah. So how about you, Ramesh?
I'll ask you a counter question. So, like, say there was five more Infinity Stones.
Right.
Would you be worried of Thanos getting those?
We'll have two Thanos, right?
So, if you had more Infinity Stones, you could say, okay, he's not got all of them,
Right.
but you have to be worried. Like, we have
What-
now saved like
we have
five
now
more.
saved five
We
more,
might
yeah.
lose another superhero.
Right.
So, same thing. Like, because there. So, see, if we look at so if I look at like when I first use AWS,
Right.
okay, SQS, EC2, S3 was the
Yes,
what we
I
used.
think that is what
Okay.
we were using. Exactly.
If I look at like 2013, 14,
Right.
what
Yeah.
we were using
Yeah, that is
versus
exactly.
what we are using right now.
Right.
Last two like 4 years, we are using more of like ECS
Yeah,
and
managed services
managed services
we are using, yeah.
and Lambda.
Lambda a lot.
So
Yes.
the way we were using cloud is going to change
Yes.
based on the managed services that are going to be launched.
Right.
And these managed services, they are not cheaper.
Exactly. Oh,
It
yes,
saves
yes.
you from the pain of managing those
those
services,
things, yeah.
but they are definitely costly.
Yes.
So this will basically from so I'll give you one example. There is in KMS there was just one option when you created a key. Now you see symmetric and asymmetric. This I came to know this last week only.
Mhm.
Okay, because earlier when we were using it, there was just one time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now how you use it, how you utilize it, and KMS has a charge associated.
Right.
Okay, so encryption and decryption that you are doing, that is
It's
charged.
all chargeable.
It's all chargeable.
Yeah.
You could use like I would want to encrypt everything,
Yes.
like millions of records that I have using
Right.
KMS,
Right.
but then I would have to pay for
Yes,
that. So it is
yes.
going to be complicated.
Right. So now, I'll give my 2 cents on that, and I think pretty much all three of us we started when there were like about 50 or maybe 70 services, 60, 70 services in AWS, right? Right now they are like what 125 or more than that.
That may be 125 yesterday.
Yes.
Today,
Yeah. So now, like putting AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, they are well over 400 services,
Yep.
right? Or somewhere close to 400 services. Now, this question that uh, is it going to be easier or it is going to be difficult? I think it's a pretty straightforward question. It is going to be difficult, and it brings to what he just mentioned, what Naveen mentioned, that it will become difficult for people, for individuals to manage this thing, and there has to be a tool. There has to be a platform that will say that, hey, you know what, new services launched by AWS, let me first study their pricing and do all the algorithms and give you recommendation. So AWS or Azure, for that matter, they might be doing their thing, but then for enterprises, like you mentioned, you would need to put everything inside of a platform, to get it done.
So Naveen mentioned automation.
Yes,
Okay.
automation, exactly.
So when you had physical hardware,
Yeah.
you knew that this is on this rack. I
Yeah.
have like 24 CPU
Yes.
and 1 TB of RAM. Everything that I need to provision within this capacity.
Exactly. That brings us to our next question. Yeah, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt? Sorry. Yeah.
Now, but the uses of automation, people started appreciating automation, the
Yes.
effort that we put.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You cannot with automation you can do everything like this, but
Yes.
you need to put in effort to basically
Yeah.
to be able to
Yes.
snap the fingers like Thanos.
Exactly. I know, I know. So now, again, next question to you for the physical infrastructure. It came from Akbar that customers who are using, still using physical data center, on-premises data center, they always compare. So whenever we talk to them, like you started that why cloud is so popular. When we go to them, we talk the same language, but then the first thing they compare is cost of on premises versus cost of cloud computing. What is your take on that? Should it be less? Should it be more? Should they see it as apple and oranges? What is your take?
I think we need to have different parameters when we
Okay.
compare the cost.
Mhm.
Cost doesn't mean only we're paying for buying a server.
Right,
Right?
right, right,
What are the manual cost also?
right,
Manpower involved.
right.
Right? So one thumb rule we can apply wherever we want. So if suppose we have a website of
Right,
travel
right,
ticket booking.
right.
So you see what is the cost per ticket booking.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, right.
Yes, yes,
So suppose you
exactly.
have $10,000
Right.
monthly and you have 10,000 ticket booking, so you are spending $1 per ticket.
Per ticket booking, yeah.
So you then see where are you getting.
And you
uh,
take
some-
all the cost associated.
Yes, and with the time it should decrease
Right.
because you should be optimized more and more again and again.
So everybody, I think these are real words of wisdom. And for all the people out there, I think you should definitely take this into consideration when anybody asks you. On prem I get it for X, and on cloud you are giving me X plus whatever percent. Do you want to add something to what you
So
said?
that this is this exact notion, so I'll extend this.
Right.
So say for example, you are a startup, you are
Right.
building something, you want to monetize some API,
Right.
you want to basically make more money per API call than you spend.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now there is a customer who asked, so you got a very big customer, say from Middle East.
Mhm.
Okay. He asked that I want everything running closer to my location, not yours.
Mhm.
Okay, I want control. I want this in like there are restrictions. In Europe, if you go, they will ask like my data should not leave the EU boundaries.
Right. Right.
How would you get a cheaper option for this?
Mhm.
And as Naveen mentioned, they just consider the price of buying the hardware.
Yes. Absolutely.
There are maintenance costs.
Right.
You need people to basically keep it up and running. And then, say for example, big billion days, we can take a one example.
Yeah.
If you have something like that, you won't be able to handle that.
Handle that. Yeah.
We have personally seen companies running in India selling services to companies in US and still meeting their compliance recommendations.
Yeah.
They said like we want everything in US. Okay, we'll do it.
Yeah.
That-
Because that you can have in
So-
US based data centers.
So
Yeah.
I think we need to calculate the whole life cycle cost, not just the hardware cost,
Mhm.
and then maybe have right parameters to compare.
Right.
Not exactly like 1 hour ka cost itna aa raha hai.
Right,
We need
right.
to
I'll add one more thing here.
Yeah.
So like when you are in cloud, it's not just about resources and all these things. Suppose you want to build something in a blockchain,
Mhm.
right? And you are in premise, then you need to have one system over there, and you will build something from scratch.
Yes.
But in cloud, you just use their service,
Yes.
right? You can build something in 2 days.
Right. Yeah. Right.
That's not the
right.
case in premise.
That's not the. Yeah. Yeah.
And for the people who are still in love with in-premise,
Right.
there's one really great thing you'll
Right.
be surprised to know that AWS has launched something called Outpost.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So Outpost is physical hardware. You can take this and put in your office,
Mhm.
right? And you can use the different APIs and all the different kind of stuff like you're using in cloud connecting to that hardware. So this is for the people like who are still resistant using cloud because of
Yes.
GDPR
Yes.
regulation in
Yes. Yes.
Europe,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
maybe some financial institutions
I
that I
know.
don't want to
I know.
put my data there.
Yes.
It is output
Yes.
outputs right here in your
Right.
office. You
Right.
use it.
Yeah.
So this, like, if you see Albert last 2 years, I think 2 3 years, you'll be seeing a lot of AI and ML based startups.
Yes.
There
Yes.
are companies
Right.
who are building based on data.
Right.
For do these kind of processing, you need
Right.
really good hardware, really good
Yeah.
hardware. If a startup, say for example, you have five folks who are really good, they have developed some really fantastic mechanism of like predicting,
Yes.
say for a tsunami
Right.
based on
Right.
ocean data, but you would need that kind of hardware. Do you
Tsunami
have
because
that?
of virus.
Yeah, because maybe, yeah, maybe,
We are
yeah,
hearing about it,
yeah.
right? So there are
So,
predictions made on that.
and
Yeah.
but then you have really good folks, but you don't have that kind of deep pocket
Exactly.
that you
Yeah.
need to
Yeah.
basically go. And all these startups we are seeing, because
Right.
they are growing up, it's happening because of the cloud.
No, I completely agree.
They-
I think yeah, we all agree on the benefits,
Yes.
like the immense benefit rather, transformational benefits of cloud. I completely agree on that. And I think that brings us to our kind of closing note. Now, if I may summarize, like cost management on cloud is a challenge, right? We agree that it is a challenge. It is a doable thing, with all the technical architects and experts who are working with cloud. Cloud gives you enough ammunition
Yep.
to fight off this, wastage and underutilization and over provisioning of resources. However, due to the vastness of resources available, it becomes difficult for enterprises and organizations to track cost, right?
Yeah.
And then both of you do agree that at some point of time, well, it is only going to become difficult,
Yeah.
right? And there would be like some sort of application or something would be required to manage. Like this is what you mentioned. You mentioned that is the reason, primary reason that Magic Quadrant happens for exists for CMP, Cloud Management Platform. All right. So any closing note that you want to give for cost management on cloud?
So again, it's a funny thing, but what we all are talking about, it's we are kind of victim of the race that has been in
Yes.
these cloud providers, and
Yeah.
we should not forget that these are businesses, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
Technical product companies.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
These are the technical products,
Yes.
and we are the customers. We are
Yeah.
using, being developers,
Yeah.
right? So these are things. That's why AWS is so much innovative
Yes.
that they launch something every week.
Every week. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They do amazing stuff with
Let me
their.
tell you one funny stuff. I was writing one white paper and I could not complete it, and something got changed in between.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had to change it again. So
That's the pace of innovation.
yeah,
Yeah.
so they're beating agility.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
sometimes,
Yes. I know. Yeah.
right? And at times they are launching some half cooked products also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Aurora was one such thing.
Athena.
Athena.
Athena
Yeah,
was also thing.
Athena.
There are many
Yes,
such
almost everything.
everything.
Yes. So, what are your closing notes on cost management on cloud?
I think uh, we should not be scared of going to cloud just because
Yeah.
we should actually see the benefits,
Right.
and then talk to the experts. Okay, so I remember whenever I create a AWS account, first thing I would do is, like any IAM user that I create, there would be a MFA.
MFA, multi-factor authentication.
Okay,
Yeah.
so because I understand the benefits, same
Right.
thing goes for, like, okay, just there was a question, right? Multiple websites,
Right.
and there could be multiple solutions to it.
Right.
You just, before going to it, you see like what is the best that you can use, and you can keep a check on it.
Right.
It is, with the times it is going to increase the amount of check that you need to keep, but we should basically get your hands dirty is my advice.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Right.
Nobody has crossed the ocean by reading the book of how
Exactly.
to cross the ocean in
Right.
21
You
days.
need to.
Yeah,
You need to swim into that. Yeah.
You just get your hands dirty, read the white papers, all the cloud providers, they have recommendation on what and what not to do.
Right, right. But you need to obviously
Yeah, it's about
implement
to
it.
have more and more expertise
Yeah, exactly.
to explore all these things
Yes.
and become
Yes.
more opinionative rather than just seeing the advice.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yes.
There could be 100 advice, but
Yes, yes,
one
I
opinion should
completely
be
agree.
there.
Oh yes, yes, very true.
There is no silver bullet.
Yes, yes. So amazing, amazing, interaction with these two gentlemen, everybody. Now, as you know that we mentioned that there will be a surprise. So we have our own, cloud management platform called Powerboard. So we will be sending you a coupon in your emails. So please take a look at it. Now, before we wrap up, there is one last question that we have received is that apart from automation, is there any way we can reduce MSP cost? So apart from automation, like for all the people who are having a lot of servers and storage, what would you recommend to reduce the cost?
I think right sizing is one thing that you
Right
should
sizing,
always,
Auto
yeah,
scaling, use
yeah,
auto
auto
scaling.
scaling, so
yeah,
that you don't keep them running all the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think they auto scaling obviously falls sort of under automation that you can automate certain things,
Hmm.
and which obviously is not available on prem in
Yeah,
most cases. Yeah,
for doing auto scaling, you don't need the expertise.
Yeah,
expertise.
yeah,
You can
yeah.
do
Yes,
it
you
You
can do
can do
it.
it from the
Yes,
UI.
exactly
just
from
Right
the
away.
UI.
from the
Yeah,
console in a
very
couple
true,
of
very
minutes.
true. Yes, so I think those are two really good suggestions. Right sizing is very important and always auto scale. Great. So thank you everybody for joining us. We will be back with another episode soon with another senior folks. Thank you very much. Thank you, Naveen. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining us. Thank you, Ravish. Thank you for joining us on this thing. See you later. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.